Welcome Scorpio to your monthly horoscope for September 2003 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for. Please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs, particularly relevant to your sign. This is a month when your friendships and your long-term future hopes come very sharply into focus. But also we need to be conscious of the role of your two rulers. Your traditional ruler of Mars is actually locked away in a very private area. What's the implication of that? And then Pluto is in a T-square with the nodal axis for the whole of this month. Pluto's in house 3, your everyday ideas, but the position of the south and the north node is really very much to do with the more private and more spiritual dimension of your situation, the south, and the more practical domain, the north. So need to check out that for you too. Mercury goes direct mid-month, Venus goes direct on the 4th, Jupiter goes retrograde on the 4th. Stay with me as I unpack all this for you. I'd just like to share with you a very special opportunity. Year 2023 is speeding by and year 24 racing towards us. If you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast now based on your unique birth data, I'll provide for you the rest of year 2023 free of charge, but also my special package of 30% off. You'll get your character analysis report, your life roadmap, which will give you searing insights of the patterns that have played out so far, but also help you to get a much more intimate understanding of how to work with these energies. Please see the link below for more. And also, I'd just like to flag up to you that underneath this video, you can see your year 2024 free zodiac horoscope video forecast. So Scorpio, as you come into September, the Sun and Mercury are pretty close together, but Mercury's also angling back to Uranus in your sector of relating, which has been quite the influence over the last few years, may have shook things up in sometimes a disruptive way. In other moments, maybe it's created some sudden opportunities and excitement. Certainly what Uranus wants us to find is authenticity. So for you, it's about feeling your relationships are real, and where they're not, some people, even if you really like them, may have made way. So Uranus applies to Mercury, despite its retrograde, in the first week of this month. So I think the people you can connect to, who share your worldview, who you really enjoy being with socially, you may even have a surprise reunion with someone from your past, and it can be a real buzz to catch up. And I think actually very, very quickly you'll soon settle into the old routine and be laughing at all the old things that you used to get up to. Of course, it is possible that someone new can come into your world. Mercury retrograde doesn't mean everything's going to go bad. It does mean that there could be some reorganization that's necessary through to the middle of the month, particularly around social situations, or maybe some long-term hopes are going to change somehow. But see the opportunities in it, because the direct motion of Venus on the 4th is going to prime up your professional hopes. And it may very much be a case of who, as much as what you know, is going to be very, very helpful to you, particularly if there has been some relationships in your workplace that perhaps haven't quite flowed as you would like or expect over the last 42 days of the retrograde. But Jupiter does slam on the brakes. So when it comes to relationships, from now through to the end of the year, the authenticity of those relationships is going to be tested. Jupiter's a lovely influence. It's very bubbly. It can be jovial. It can promote within us a sense of optimism, but also a sense of unreality. And I think Jupiter in Taurus is actually a pretty good place for Jupiter to be. It kind of slows down some of those excesses and makes it a little more realistic. So if there is someone that you're drawn to, it's just asking you not to get ahead of yourself. But on the 6th, we have a glorious conjunction between Mercury and the Sun. But because Mercury is retrograde, it's this side of the Sun. So as we see it from planet Earth, it's in the disk of the Sun. So in traditional astrology, that's known as a Cazimi. So that's said to magnify the brilliance of Mercury. Sun conjunct Mercury can see you, particularly with Uranus providing its support, come up with some absolutely ingenious ideas. It may be that you're going to take the lead in some kind of social or group situation, or you're just going to really have a vision of where you want to go forwards. Now, Mercury still being in retrograde through to the mid-month point and still in shadow to the end of the month doesn't mean to say it's all going to happen exactly straight away, but I think you can put in motion where you see your future destination being. So you're working towards something. It's just that with Jupiter in retrograde in your 7th house, that's very much the area where we collaborate. So you can't necessarily assume that everyone will collaborate exactly as you hope. Despite this, ironically, Venus and Jupiter are in a square for the first few weeks of this month. There could be somebody through your professional situation that is a larger than life character, and it may be that you're very much drawn to their personality, but I would be very much drawn to what they're saying and how deliverable the pledges are that they're making. So if you meet someone who is very charismatic, however much you may like them as a person, really distill it down, very Virgo, distill it down to what the benefit might be. Now, from the 12th through to the 30th, Venus begins to align with that deeply located, the very privately located Mars that I mentioned in the introduction. That suggests that a conversation that you have, it could be with someone in a professional situation, it could even be with someone who you used to work with in the past. It may take place in a quiet way. Maybe you're going to have a little bit of a scoping chat, not necessarily revealing the full hand, so to speak. Then again, there could be someone at work that you're really secretly very sweet on, and could be quite the crush, to be honest. But Mars does, I should say, just in the first week of this month, it does get into a tense relationship with Saturn. Saturn's in your 5th house, which is where we want to demonstrate our flair, talent, creativity, enjoy life, pleasures, sociability, romance, and so on. And Saturn, of course, can be a little bit mean-spirited and cold. And because Mars is in your 12th house, if there is a problem in a romantic relationship that's to do with perhaps unfaithfulness, I just need to be really honest about it, or some attitudes that keep being repeated that one side or the other is not aware of, that could be something that comes up right at the start of this month. So perhaps Jupiter's retrograde is a call to action to use the knowledge of Jupiter to try to understand your relationship better through to the year end. But the 15th does see Mercury end its retrograde and a new moon. And that new moon occurs in the sign of Virgo in your 11th house of that longer term future and friendships. But it does forge a dazzling link with Uranus. So Uranus links beautifully with Mercury at the start of the month with this new moon, but it also repeats its angle to Uranus at the end of the month. Some exciting developments, therefore, around certain friendships and involvements. So I feel that Mars-Saturn link is much more likely to come up in a long-standing relationship that hasn't quite been working as well as it could. There could even be some energy that surfaces to do with a relationship with a child. I don't mean a young child. It could be someone who's an adult, and maybe there's some politics between you and them that's not quite been spoken through. It could refer to past hurts or upsets, or you yourself could process stuff to do with relationships. You may not be in a relationship at the moment, but there may be something that needs to be purged, Mars in the 12th house, that then frees you up to then embrace the energy of the 5th house, where Saturn and Neptune are, and all that duo are asking you to do is to work hard, Saturn, and use your imagination, Neptune, in order to visualize and create your romantic reality that you really feel you want. But if there is some past kind of stuff, baggage or blockage getting in the way, I think that could come up at the start of this month, and also strangely from the 25th, but I'll get to that shortly, because from the 18th to the 23rd, the Sun forges an epic angle to your modern ruler of Pluto. If there is something that you're wanting to really alter in your life, and you are typical of your sign in the sense that the fixed energy, that you like to stay with what you know, can be a bit reluctant to change what has worked on the whole pretty well, you could be pushed to actually be a little bit more open to some kind of evolution. If you can go with it, all well and good. If you find that more challenging, I think once the Sun moves with the autumnal equinox into the sign of Libra, your 12th house, on the 25th, that's linking back to Saturn just in the way that Mars did at the start of the month. So you get that 12th, 5th house energy again. So if there is some stuff that is very sensitive from your past, it could come up to the surface on the back of the full moon of the 29th in the sign of Aries. That's asking you to grapple with practicalities, whereas the Sun and Mars are in the 12th house, the spiritual, psychological and emotional dimension. If there is someone, for example, at work that hasn't got your best interests at heart, they could be revealed at this time, I'm afraid. But Venus also clashes with Uranus in the last week of this month. Now, because Venus is in a very proud part of your chart, that could steer some of your responses. You may be highly conscious of how other people view you, and it's only natural you'll want to be viewed in a positive way. But I feel that Uranus could push you to free yourself from something, whether it's a job, whether it's a friendship, or some kind of pattern in your life that isn't working for you, if you're keeping up appearances, which could be Venus in Leo. So as the month draws to a close, you are back into quite the deep dive. And also, as I mentioned in the introduction, your modern ruler is in a T-square to the nodal axis. So I think if you're born right at the start of Scorpio, you're going to be much more conscious of the challenge of that in terms of the nodes, because the nodes are pretty close to you. But I think it's all about keeping the lines of communication open. Essentially, this is a month where it gives you loads of opportunities to connect to others in a very sparkling way. But underneath that, there's a subtext, and that subtext is actually very deep. And you have to accept that your sign is very deep. You feel things in a very, very powerful way. So as much as there can be some very bubbly, delightful and engaging encounters, yes, there could be a bit of a stop-start around that with the Mercury retrograde. But I think Uranus is certainly potentially bringing people into your situation very quickly. That can be exciting and stimulating. But underneath that, the position of Mars and its angle to Saturn at the start of this week, and then on the start of the third cardinal quadrant with the autumnal equinox, so the third 13-week segment of the year in astrology, that also links back to Saturn, 12th, 5th house. So if you really want to manifest joy around your love life and around having children or your hobbies, interests and creative flair, I think if there are any inner blockages, or you're fearful about people's sincerity or support or trustworthiness, it will need to be looked at in a big way as the month draws to a close. So I think you can have a lot of playful encounters, but there is a serious theme that may need to be grappled with as the month draws to a close. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Scorpio. Thank you so much for joining me. Please like, comment, share or subscribe.